everybody. Welcome to InPsightRadio. I am your host, Danielle Egnew, and you are a fly on the wall to everywhere. How are you? How are you doing? How are you faring through this time frame? It's something, isn't it? Wow. And I tell you, we're at the very, very end of July of 2020, and this is our 100th episode. I cannot believe it. I cannot believe we have had this podcast rolling 100, number 100. And in this time frame with 100 podcasts, we've talked all about Bigfoot and UFOs and debunking conspiracies and airing things that are happening that nobody knew about that one could consider a conspiracy. Talking about world energies, little people, paranormal events. We've talked about so much. We've talked about politics. We've talked about world evolution. We've talked about 5D and multidimensional issues. We've talked about fabulous spooky Halloween things. And we've talked about angels and off-worlders and anything to do with mysteries in Egypt and other cultures. We have gone and gone and gone. And here we are, episode 100. And we're landing in episode 100 during a COVID time frame, during a time when kids are getting ready to go back to school. We've got a lot of people nervous about what that even means for their kids and their families. We have so much happening right now. And in the middle of all of that, politics, thank God, are starting to chill out just a little bit. We have some choices to make, humanity. And we're right in the middle of 2020. And for the 100th episode today, I'm going to be doing some fabulous angelic channeling for everybody because we're going to bring through how to save the world in a few easy steps because it's possible. And that's literally what we're going to talk about. How do we actually save the world and what can we do to do that? And I'll tell you, it's so interesting to me when I hear people talk about how they feel like there's no more hope. They feel like hope is dead. They feel like they don't know what's going on in the world with people's moral or non-moral structures. Yet, gang, we have a really important role to play right now. If you're on the planet Earth right now, you are here because you're here to play one hell of a role. You're not just taking up space like packing popcorn. And especially for those of us in the United States, although we've got listeners to this podcast that are all over the world. So I'm going to talk about some United States specific stuff here today. Yet I want you to know that this is also information that if applied to wherever you live in whatever society that you are part of, this information will also be very important. And again, this is coming from the angelic realm, and I'm translating it into some friendly human because angels don't always sound like we do. Oftentimes they don't. And they're certainly not people. Angels aren't people. We don't die and become an angel. As much as I love It's a Wonderful Life, it's not how it rolls. So these beings are temporal. And they not only see the past, present, and future, they see our future in multiple timelines. And what is a timeline? Well, a timeline is our highest probability of action that we're going to take, basically from this point going forward. And it reminds me of those, when I was a kid, they had the Encyclopedia Brown books. And I love those. And it's like if Encyclopedia Brown decides to look under the table for a clue, turn to page 7. If Encyclopedia Brown calls his friend for a clue, turn to page 3. And you could basically create your own way of doing things in your own storyline, depending on whatever route you took. It was awesome. So, just like Encyclopedia Brown, here we are, and we have multiple timelines, which means that we have lots of choices to make. We don't have one big fat future. That would pretty much take out free will, and well, thanks for playing, Earth. What would we be doing down here? We'd just be chess pieces. So there are definitive ways that we can take action that will forever change this planet. Now, I want to recap a few things. And for those of you who have been listening to the COVID podcasts and all of the COVID information that I've brought forward, some of this is going to be a tiny bit of recap, but we're going to weave in some information that wasn't necessarily included in those previous podcasts. And it's really important to realize that COVID-19 hitting the planet the way that it did and throwing the emergency brake on the planet Earth's financial structure the way that it has, it's really important to note that there's a reason this all happened. And I know there's a lot of conspiracy theories gang out there that, the cabal is trying to take over the world and one world government and blah, blah, blah. Well, I mean, I hate to bust everybody's bubble, but we already have sort of one world government-ish. When we're dealing with first world nations, that's what the trade laws are, and it's just a thing. So let's just put that on the back burner because that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about the spiritual physics of why an entire global economy would take a giant poo. What runs the world right now? You know, it reminds me of that ABBA song, "Money, money, money, it ain't funny," because money has. Yet we are such a globalized society, whether we want to be or not, gang. That's just the reality. You know, I really wish I was a pony, but I'm a person. I really wish I was 24, but I'm 51. You know, it doesn't matter what you wish for. There are certain tenets of physics that are there, and we are a global society. So if money is what is running the world, the first world at least, and maybe running some of the more non-upstanding parts of the third worlds, if that's true, then if we take the money out, we have to figure out a different way to run the planet in an effective format. So I want you to just reformat your brain in the way you think about global economics and the way you think about interacting with one another. And even I want you to really rethink the way that you would deal even with your own finances, okay? Because what would happen if we were living in a connected world where we were striving after something that was greater than just the ability to financially gain so that we'd have a roof over our head? Oh no. This podcast is really going to require some stretching of your brains, gang, because we are being asked to do something absolutely phenomenal right now on the planet Earth. And it's going to take a lot of courage. It's going to take a lot of bravery. It's going to take putting a lot of what we think is not possible off to the side in order to engage what is possible. And it's really going to take a few of the economic sociopaths out there who are trying to control world commerce. It's going to take them recognizing that we're kind of no longer falling in like good little soldiers and doing exactly what they want us to do anymore. Because we can't. We can't. I mean, here in the United States, and I'm gonna kind of focus this in here. Here in the United States, good heavens, I think the statistic that just came out was our economy dropped 33% or something ungodly during COVID-19. And we can talk all day about the economy, yet what that's a bigger statement on is that in America, we are trained from the time we are teeny little kids to save your money, then go spend it. To get $1 and spend $5 on credit. That's the American way of life. You know, it's normal for Americans to get a stimulus check, and some people paid their bills and ate off of that. A lot of people took that and bought big flat screen TVs and then called their bill providers and said they couldn't pay their bills, you know? I mean, a lot of people took that money and did whatever they wanted with it, which do whatever you want with your money. This is not, I'm not morally wagging my finger at anybody. I'm talking about in America, we've been trained to feed the machine. All my money belongs to somebody else. It belongs to taxes. It belongs to my bill collectors. It belongs to my mortgage company. It belongs to my phone payment plan. So the reason that I was stunned by the 33% drop in spending in America in the economy, everything dropped, is all of a sudden it really drew my attention to how much freaking money we spend in this country. Honestly, on crap, okay? And it's not that I don't love my stuff. I mean, I'm sitting here in this beautiful studio in my home, and behind me, I've got, 20 years worth of guitars I've collected, and I mean, it's a little ridiculous. So I'm not throwing any stones at anybody's glass house. I'm saying if we think about why this emergency brake was pulled on the world, it's because we just stopped this flow of money. So what are we learning from this? Well, some people are not learning much. Some people are just getting upset and saying things need to go back to the way they were, but they're not going to do that. Because as I talked about a couple of podcasts ago, many ago now, the angels had shown me that American businesses were going to find that it was a lot cheaper to let people stay at home and work than to rent out an entire floor of a high rise to have people show up, sit in a cube, and do the exact same thing that they could do sitting at home in their PJs. So now, as was shown us, by the angels a couple of months ago, now we're having American companies coming out and global companies all over the world saying, stay home, do your thing. It's fine by us. We're still making our money, and you don't have to drive to work. So what are we seeing, gang? This isn't exactly about COVID-19, this podcast. We're seeing a giant shift. And we have an opportunity, while the emergency brake is thrown on the world financially, to decide how we want to proceed and build this new earth going forward. And I'll tell you straight up, we are not going to go back to the way it was. I've been saying that for months, but I'm seeing it very clearly. Part of the way that we can change the world, that we can begin to rebuild a society that's greater than before, is to connect in ways that we didn't before, and also to use our courage to come forward and not buy into parts of the old system that literally kept us divided. We've got to come together, gang. We have got to come together. Now, that pushes the buttons in all of us, especially in America. God, we've been taught to fight and fight and fight with one another in America. Because as long as we're in discomfort, as long as we're fighting, we'll buy medication to feel better. We'll buy subscriptions to things. We'll buy more bullets. As long as we believe that there is a grand enemy out there, then the power of millions upon millions of Americans is diminished by fear, okay? And if you're listening out of the country, please apply this to whatever country you're listening in. But in America specifically, we have been suppressed by fear. What if you lose your job? What if you lose your retirement? What if? This fear thing. Buy 1 million tons of insurance because you could get eaten by a dinosaur. Do you have the dinosaur bite your head off insurance? I mean, it's insanity over here. And now we've been watching racial issues bubble up that have been there the whole time. And we've got this country that was founded on that old world suppression model. So we have an opportunity to rebuild in America in a way that's never been done before. And if you're listening out of the country, you've got an opportunity to join in and build a world that we've never built before. Now, this is going to push the hell out of the buttons of folks who believe that we need to have an enemy in order to really take our individualism and put it on a flag and stick it in the sand. I was having a Facebook conversation the other day with a friend of mine who really had some comments on this big old long video that came through that I put out. And he was saying, I would love the world to be this great collective exercise in cooperation and trust and working together. But, the world's never been like that. And actually, that's not true. The world that we know has never been like that. But when I talk to these angels and they tell me all about human history, you have to remember, gang, that this is the third reboot of humanity. We've almost been wiped out completely off the map 2 other times. And our species goes back 300, 500,000 years. And we've almost been knocked out twice. We're the 3rd iteration of humanity. And we've managed to push through and create some grand technologies. And now there's way too many of us for the planet. And it's going to require that we begin to trust one another. And this isn't going to happen overnight. And it's going to take us starting now in 2020 so that a generation or 2 down the road just reads about that mistrust that we've had for one another in history books. Because what we're here to do is to inspire the greatness in every single one of us. We are here to support each other in our moments of greatest despair. We're here to teach each other how to do miracles. And I can't tell you how many spiritual people who've come to the planet Earth and tried to teach us this same stuff, and we still don't believe it, even when we see it. We've got gurus right now in India. These are gurus who can levitate, and who can create food out of thin air, and who can live on literally air and goodwill and a little tiny cup of water for years and sustain themselves by pulling the energy from the air. So this is not something super special that only some people can do, gang. Those people in India who dedicate to these practices, they have the same human body that you do, okay? They go to the bathroom, they breathe, they get stuff in their eyeball, they get a stuffy nose, just like you do. We're in a time frame where we can begin to share resources with one another. How many of you out there don't even actually really know your neighbors? I can tell you honestly, we kind of know one of our neighbors. We had a new neighbor that moved in recently, and I haven't taken much time to go talk to him. Of course, it's COVID-19, so you don't, really want to just show up on somebody's doorstep. It's, hi, I'm Typhoid Tessie. Can I come in? We've got to have some kind of decorum here. Yet we don't know our neighbors. We don't know our communities because we have been separated by the idea that we have got to dig in, build our own bank accounts, take care of our own. And yes, of course, we need to do those things. We have to be grown-ups, people. Okay. However, what would the world be like if we began to stop demonizing helping people? It's so funny here in the United States, we are printing funny money like you can't believe. We just keep printing money and depositing it into people's accounts, and we're racking up the deficit. And everybody's screaming and yelling about this deficit. Oh my God. And I'm laughing about that because we run up deficits all the time for military expenditures and whatever. But it seems to be a really big deal in the United States if we run up money taking care of our own people. And that's pretty telling. And this extreme fear in America about being socialist. What is that actually about? I just laugh. There's this weird belief system in this country that there are people living off the hard work of others. And, I don't know if anybody knows this or not, but the multi-generational poverty that has gone down in the United States, folks who have experienced multi-generational poverty, okay? They're not just lazy people who don't want to get a job. These are individuals who for 10 generations potentially have not it's not been necessary for them to develop the skills to pound the pavement. Oh, they know somebody who graduated from college who can help them get a job. I work with a very dear friend of mine. I've owned a record label with him, and he's just my brother from another mother, my friend Roy Pack. And Roy used to run a mental health center in Wyoming. And one of the things that Roy taught me was that when we're talking about people who have struggled socioeconomically for generations, people who are on welfare over and over and over and over and over again, generationally, He was letting me know that their mental health center would work with folks who are financially challenged in that way. And really, you become culturally challenged if you are multi-generational in that poverty system. And they would literally hold classes for hygiene. Because, I really want you to think about this. If you never had to leave your house for any specific reason, except to get supplies, and you weren't expected to be anywhere, and you did not need to kiss anybody's butt in the workplace, let's look at our COVID selves. How often have you taken a shower during quarantine? How long did you stay in your PJs? How many mats did you get in the back of your head? I know I had a hell of a lot myself. And if you think about never having to be anywhere, then Roy was telling me that there are generations of people who just what I would think of normal hygiene, like you take a shower, put deodorant on, brush your teeth, get out the door, go to work kind of thing, that reality isn't even there for them. So you're teaching them why it's important to clean yourself to be around other folks. Then you're teaching folks how to interact on a sense of time, because why would you need to have any time? You know what? Why would time matter if you weren't supposed to be anywhere? So the reason I'm bringing this up is to say that imagine if we stopped the judgment across the board. Imagine if we had the courage to stop looking at, say, someone who has been economically challenged for 10 generations on a particular system of receiving payments. What if we just came out of judgment with that and said, wow, that person is part of a culture that I have no way to understand what that culture feels like. No way at all. And what if we came out of judgment also on the polar end in America, where we're looking at people who have tons of money in this country? And there's a really popular demonization here in America that I don't get on board with. I don't get on board with demonizing anything. And this very popular demonizing of rich people. Oh, we all love to do that, right? They're all evil. The 1%, they're all evil. Well, I'm calling horse crap on that. I know a lot of exceptionally wealthy people, and they give away so much money. They just give it away because they have enough to give it away. And do they have money? Well, sure they do. But these were also people who started businesses in their homes and literally for 10 and 15 years of their life gave up driving new fancy cars. They gave up eating out. They were eating stir-fry frozen vegetables and top ramen with some cracked eggs in it. And built their businesses up. And so if we can come out of demonizing all of the areas that this creepy system in America has wanted us to think that someone else is the problem, down to racial issues. Oh, it's the Latin American people coming in and taking our jobs out there in the fields in California. Yeah, I've never once seen a white guy line up to go pick produce in California. I'm not saying there's not any, and maybe you're that person, and rock on, man. Yet, or this idea that, black people are why we struggle with crime. Is that so? Because, the people shooting up schools are white. That's so interesting. So, look at all the ways, gang, that we talk about systematic racism. Look at systematic paranoia. Systematic paranoia in America. It's always somebody else's fault. It's not ours. It's somebody else's. So if we want to change the world, and if you're listening outside of America, here you go. And again, I'm talking real fast because I've got a lot of angels talking and I'm trying to keep up with all of them here. We've got to stop deciding that somebody else is the problem. And we've got to stop blaming, and we've got to come together and decide that we want to build some incredible things, from infrastructure to this nation, to social programs, to international relations. We as the people have the power to actually bring this to the table. And yes, we do elect our senators and our representatives. These are, for the most part, there's some real duds right now that we're about ready to get rid of in 2020, to be honest with you. And that's on both sides of the aisle. Yet we elect people to bring our best interests at heart. Yet even those people are lacking the belief that we can build a United States that exists outside of the history books and goes forward in a way that's unbelievable. You know, our money system, gang, our money, we're also focused on money, 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 money. Money. The money system in America is going to belly out. Our American dollar is going to fall in world markets because we are printing funny money and giving it to everybody. And quite frankly, I say go for it because we're so afraid of the idea of socialism, because under that is a fear that somebody's going to get something that I didn't get, and I'm working way harder than they are. And in America, we go into this dysfunctional oppression Olympics, and we've got to be the most oppressed because God forbid you're a white person and you say Black Lives Matter. Well, what about my life? All lives matter. Wait a minute. Black Lives Matter. You know, come on, white people. You're not the ones who've been ground under the heel of society since we started this nation. Suck it up. You know, I mean, if we can begin to value each other as much as we freaking value our IRAs, if we can value the hearts and gifts and brilliance of each other, not because we have the right education or we live in the right part of town or we're middle class and we're not wealthy because we have to not trust those wealthy people, right? Or we're middle class and, let's not trust those impoverished people. They'll ask us for stuff. What if we just begun to see each other as what is necessary to keep us all alive? Because that's the truth. We can no longer fight over the resources that are going to be disappearing off of this planet. We cannot fight over them. There will be nobody left. Please hear me. This is the 100th episode of a podcast whose sole design is to bring through messages and insights that we don't talk about every day. And I am telling you, as somebody who deals with temporal creatures, I am telling you, as someone who deals with angels and off-worlders, ETs, good God, ghosts, you name it. Elementals, demons, the whole nine. That if we do not begin to work together now from 2020 to about 2025, hardcore, we will not be able to sustain ourselves. You know, I've been talking about water issues for quite some time. And if you go back on YouTube, and I think it's 2017 or 18, you can see some videos I put up about the water issues that were going to be coming to bear in 19 and 20. We're talking fresh water. And just a couple of podcasts ago, I was talking about how we were going to be watching our weather patterns go cray-cray in 2020 and how we were just going to be seeing just hurricane after hurricane after hurricane, just doubling up right on each other. The hurricane season starting early, we've seen that too. So the reason that I'm citing, if you want to call them predictions or whatever, that I've already talked about that we're seeing come to bear is not to pat myself on the back and say, hey, aren't I awesome? It's to bring attention to these angels who bring through this information so that we can do something with it. And I'm here to tell you that we are being asked to do something magnificent going forward. We're being asked to put aside our polarization. Go ahead and vote for whoever you're going to vote for in this upcoming election. Yet, if we continue to hate one another because of a silly letter after people's names, we're not going to get through what we need to get through in this country. Why is that? Well, let me tell you. I am somebody who tends to vote on the left, right? Yet I get it, left, right. But everybody, she's here till Thursday. Tip your bartender. However, I am somebody who lives in Montana. And I live in a deeply agricultural state. And a lot of the folks growing that wheat and that corn and those crops and those cows and those sheep are folks who understand natural weather cycles. A majority of these people, I'm not talking big ag, okay? Big ag falls into government-controlled food, and we get into these farmers who have been strong-armed to put hormones in their cows and drop Roundup on their wheat, and that's a whole other thing. But let's just talk about farmers as people, okay? Farmers as people, they are highly intuitive. They are sharp as a tack. These are individuals who can feel not only the earth, they've got a deep empathic sixth sense on them, and they can feel other people. They can feel trends coming. I mean, farmers are some of our biggest mystics that exist, okay? And when I get a chance to talk to ranchers and farmers, those folks are so in my wheelhouse, and I'm in their wheelhouse. And they see stuff out in those fields because they get up and at times when you and I are just snoozing away, right? They are up in their fields, and sometimes they're working out in their barns, and they're making sure that their livestock is taken care of way after the rest of us have gone to bed. And they're by themselves. They're by themselves. They're by themselves. And they see things. They see things in their hearts. They see things in the sky. They see things through their animals. I mean, these are mystic people. And you're going to look at a farmer, and a lot of these farmers and ranchers that I'm talking about that I am dear, dear friends with, when they go to the voting booth, even though they and I are on the same soul path, they're going to check the R box. Because that's just kind of what their daddies did. And they have this idea of conservatism that is small government and let me just run my farm. And, because my world is my world and it's my farm and this is what I believe in. So if I were to take an exception to the little R that they check, even though every other piece of our humanity lines up and we talk UFOs and Bigfoot and, they graciously give. Have you ever gone to eat at a ranch? They will give you so much food. They will give you blankets to sleep with. They will make sure you have they will give you and give and give and give. Because that's the culture. Now, if we were going to go off of some very negative media messaging, well, that'd be socialism. You're giving it all away. I didn't earn that. Why are you giving me a prime rib? It is hospitality. It is caring for your fellow humans. And a lot of these folks out there, when you're talking especially the eastern part of Montana, God, if you've never seen snow blow straight horizontally, I mean, white out the road, you can't even see a foot ahead of you. It's so cold. It's 40 below and there's snow blinding you. Go to eastern Montana. And when you're out there and you're a rancher or you're a farmer and you come across human beings, you're not asking if they're a Democrat or Republican. You're asking them if they want to come in and sit by your fire. Okay? So why am I giving you this example, this long-winded example? Because if we want to save the world, we have go ahead and vote how you're going to vote. We've got to come out of blaming and hating one another, period. And whomever it is on the television that tells you that you need to fear another person because that is bullshit. Now, outside of maybe a newscast saying, beware of this person that broke in and killed 9 people, they're on the loose. I'm talking any political figure. And this goes across the board. I get very frustrated with how folks in the Democratic Party keep trying to shove this old world, it's the Republicans are taking us down. Do you know they only do that because they feel it rallies the troops? And did you know behind closed doors, 9/10 of those Republicans are besties with those Democrats? Yet they get out there on our screens and they act like they hate each other because this is a way that we as Americans have been trained like monkeys to respond to a fight. And what did I already talk about? We take our money and we give it away. For every $1 we earn, we're giving away 5. And so if we come out of this fear model in the whole world, well, what does that mean? How do we run a society? I can hear people out there saying, well, this sounds idyllic, but we still need money. We still need to have a job. Well, of course we need to have a job. Did you know that human beings, and these angels talk about this all the time, human beings absolutely positively fail in their hearts, their minds, their spirits, and their psyches if we don't have a purpose. And did you know that we were talking about multi-generational poverty. Some people call that folks using the welfare system. But that multi-generational poverty, a lot of times, one of the reasons you see so much crime in those communities, and I'm thinking white communities, I'm thinking white impoverished communities here. There is so much crime because it's like nobody knows what to do with the potential that is them. And I mean, literally, there's just nothing to do except pick a fight or break into something or steal something. We need some kind of endorphin rush in the head. And yes, of course, people steal financially, because of finances. But I'm telling you, if you are an African American person in this country and you have never, ever been given the same opportunities that white people have been given, and after a while, there's this feeling of never being able to get out of a preset system whose rules are absolutely stacked against you, which is true in this country. And I'm sorry, white people, if that hurts your feelers. But listen, whitey tighties, we have been operating in a video game where we get like 25 lives, where everybody else with skin that's not white gets 1, maybe 2 if you're Asian, okay? So if that's hard for white people to accept, tough crap. It's the truth. So why don't we, that's what white privilege is, okay? So why don't we take this and say, okay, this is silly. Every human being has incredible gifts and talents, and we need to level the playing field so that we all have an opportunity to bring our genius forward. Now, let's talk about what the United States is run on one more time. What is it? Money. Money. We opened early in COVID-19 because of money. We had to get that stock market up. Why? Money. So if we look at the money driver of America, it doesn't make a lot of sense to give the richest people tax breaks because, hey, rock on with your bad self if you're super rich. It doesn't make a lot of sense there because the middle class and the lower middle class and a little bit of the upper middle class is driving commerce in America. Really. Because there's more of those folks. It's a numbers issue. So if we are supporting everybody equally, if we're not simply, if we no longer tolerate a system that lets you get right to the front of the line if you're male and white, okay? And that's not I'm not picking on white males. You guys have had it awesome for a long time. Pat yourself on the back and say, well, that was awesome. But it's time we move forward out of that because if everybody gets that same opportunity, everybody's making more money. And what do we love to do in the United States? If we make more money, every dollar we make, we give away or spend 5, okay? So if we're all having opportunities that are more vast, then we're all able at that point to begin to bring forward our greatest gifts and talents. And the only reason the United States has been touted in the past as a bright shining light on the hill, I think we're kind of more of a turd rolling down the hill right now. But at one time, we were known as the bright shining light on the hill. And as we know, if you're a Native American person in this country, you're just flat out invisible, okay? It's not even that people hate you. You're just not even there. You don't even show up on the radar because we've got so much internalized shame for steamrolling the indigenous peoples of this country that we just erase them. And I have a very good friend who's going to remain nameless just for his own privacy. Yet this is an individual who's worked in Washington, D.C. He's Native American and has worked with politicians and tribal councils. And even under the Obama administration was told that the American government couldn't come forward and say, gosh, I'm so sorry that we did what we did to the Native folks and let's do something to make that right. Even the Obama administration balked and didn't come forward to say that because there was too much pressure that, well, if we say that, then we're going to have to apologize to all the African Americans and all the Latin Americans. And what about all the folks in World War II that we put in internment camps? And we're going to have to pay everybody. And oh, no. Well, then let's damn well pay everybody. Because I think we've kind of figured out, people, that we can print money and give it to whoever the frick we want. So why aren't we doing it for the right reasons? So where does this come back to you and me as individuals? Where? Well, apparently the Obama administration did issue some kind of an apology or something to the Native American nations, but it was never released publicly, and it was kind of under the table and sort of a quiet, here's our, here you go. I mean, why? Gang, we can't change the past. We can't change what's happened with gender equality and sexual equality and skin color equality. We cannot change economic imbalance. We can't change the past. But right now, the entire world is on standby. And we are being asked, especially in America, how do you want to build it forward? So can I just ask everybody to reach deep and have some guts in this time frame? If you're somebody who believes in the idea of American rebels and all this stuff we love to talk about and all the many, many reasons that Europe is so tired of us visiting, but all this I'm an American rebel. If you really want to be a rebel, then we need to be unanimously putting our voices together that all people need to be supported and that our economic system, the way that we've done it, with limiting ability and resources to anybody who can buy it. If everybody could buy it, then we'd all be rolling in dough. All these companies that want to make $1 zillion, they'd be making $1 trillion because we would all have the same opportunities. And we'd all happily spend our money on cool stuff because that's what we do in the United States. So how about if we could take some of that money and put it back into our community? So what does this mean? How do we change the world? Well, first and foremost, we have to be brave enough to stop falling in and being pressured to hate other people. We have to stop that. I've got a lot of lefty friends who can't even listen to me talk about the fact that there are certain aspects of certain people in politics who happen to have an R by their name that I respect. They can't even hear it. They think I'm a heretic. You would have thought I was talking about God going into a brothel. I mean, they can't hear it. And I know people far, far on the right that when somebody tries to talk about something wonderful that Obama did in the presidency, my God, they just shut down and they can't deal with it. So we have to disassociate, gang, from the old world labels. Go ahead and vote for how you want to vote, have your opinions, but until we come out of wearing these costumes that were stitched for us by a consumerist system that is designed to separate us, because if we come together, all millions of us in this nation, and we just want a just tax schedule, and we want a just social system, and we would like to be left alone to make the choices we want with our body, to do what we want with our guns, well, there it is. Okay? I mean, we don't have to go down this road anymore of limiting resources under the guise that the great financial fairy is what determines your worth as a human being in America. That's just not true. We're going to run into such water issues. I started to talk about this earlier. These angels, they said, for that which is the allocation of all resources, this is the stunning figure that draws all attention. And they're talking about if we run out of clean water, who cares if you're a Republican or a Democrat? Who cares if you're white, African American, Native American, if you're anything of Asian descent, if you're Latin? We need to drink water. Okay? And because of the excessive rains that we're having excessive rains all over the place. Those excessive rains are going down, sinking into the aquifers. It's going to drive that aquifer water up through the rocks in areas like Oklahoma and, North Dakota, all of these fracking regions. Those aquifers getting pushed up the crevices and cracks through the rocks are going to encounter fracking chemicals. And not only is that going to push those fracking chemicals up, and people say, it's not a big deal. They're 10,000 feet down. It doesn't matter. I respect our our geologists a great deal who work in the area of fracking and whatnot. I mean, they're not there to try to wreck the earth. They're trying to do the right thing. Yeah, we don't have command over the planet. And honestly, whenever we think we know what we're doing, Mother Earth loves to send us a wingdinger, right? So as all of these chemicals are going to get pushed up, it's going to get pushed up to other higher level aquifers. That makes it difficult to drink that water. That makes it hard when those crops start to soak up chemicals. And it's like the chemicals just crawl from one crack and crevice to the next, and up they go. So this is one way we're going to see challenges with drinking water. The other way, too, we're just going to get so much damn rain that our rivers blowed out. And we're seeing so much flooding in the Midwest, just year after year. China. This was brought to my attention by one of the folks who are in my Patreon group, who are in the spiritual colleagues section. It's the top tier of that Patreon group, and anybody can be part of it. We just get on and Zoom and we talk about world events and things that are happening once a month. And one of the things that one of the folks in that group brought up was that in China, the rains are so heavy. They've got these multi-tiered dam system there that the water is just spilling over. And they're talking about water as weaponizing water. Like if I want to flood a valley out because I'm mad at the people, I just open the dam breaks, right? So we're going to be seeing a lot with water, gang, and we're going to be being asked, what's the most important thing? And the most important thing should be respect and survival. And if we want to change everything, then we need to be okay on social media, in conversations with friends and family, in our immediate circles, in our tiny towns where, God forbid, if we change our identity, everybody will look at us sideways like a bad episode of Bewitched. We've got to be okay with saying, you know what, whatever your deal is, just don't victimize other people. And can we just work from the place that we are all trying to make the world livable right now? And that involves trust. We have to start trusting our neighbors. I'm not saying don't keep a hairy eye on weird stuff that's happening in government. Obviously, we need to do that. Yet if we are going to mistrust everybody for every single reason, why are we even alive? I mean, if I can just get really obnoxious here. Seriously, if I'm going to mistrust, I'll pick on a classic lefty target icon, okay? If I'm going to mistrust Mitch McConnell, personally, I am not a big fan of why he does what he's done, and I don't necessarily see eye to eye with his lens of the world. Yet if I'm really, truly going to boil him down to being the devil, then I am coming out of the aspect of being able to work with anything in that person who is in a great deal of power right now to bring the world into a better place. Let's look at our president, okay? And that individual is just, as a human being, isn't necessarily my personality type, okay? Regardless of whether Trump is the president, that's probably not somebody I'm going to follow on social media. There's a little too much of that old world imbalanced, patriarchal, blustery, bully, blah. And just in general, gang, that doesn't appeal to me, okay? However, do I think Trump should die? Absolutely not. The guy has a family. Do I think that he should probably be held accountable for certain stuff? Well, yeah, but I think they all should. And if I am getting into a position where I'm saying one person is the problem, Trump is a dude. We've got a whole Senate that lets him do whatever he wants. And we also have, I have to wonder what's going on with the Democratic wings out there, that so much has just gone off the rails. But we've got to look at this instead of blaming. And we've got to let those people who we've elected know what's important to us. So what is important to us, world? What is it? This is what it boils down to. The 100th podcast. I can talk all day long about predictions. I can talk all day long about COVID-19. I can talk all day long about angelic messages. But if we do not take action, then I am just a chick flapping her gums in the dark over here. If we decide to take action, stand up for what you believe in. Be a steward of what you believe in. And I'm going to ask you to do something that might be very difficult for all of us because we were raised in a rage culture in America, okay? Especially a white rage culture. Good God. I'm going to ask us all to get rid of the word fight in our mentality. Ooh, right? Doesn't that just like hit a bunch of buttons? Like, are you asking me to lay down and take it and die? And are you taking my individuality? And see how that note gets played in us, right? You know why it's there? Because we've been bred in America to react like that. I'm going to ask you to take the word fight out. And instead, I'm going to have you substitute it with bravery, with courage. So instead of, I'm going to fight for your rights. Well, whenever we're fighting, we're expending a tremendous amount of energy into the action of fighting. And it's hard because we're so busy flying fists. What do we do after everybody's knocked out and bloody on the floor? Then there's this big recovery time, and then hurt feelings. That's just stupid and unnecessary in this world. So how about instead, I'm going to fight for your rights? How about I'm going to have the courage and the bravery to stand in the gap and it's to make a bridge for your rights? I'm going to be part of the bridge. And how about I'm going to have the courage to stand up in the face of polarization and the bravery to make a bridge to a better solution where all of us have an opportunity to weigh in. I'm not going to fight these people. I'm not going to fight the system. I'm going to have the courage and the bravery to absolutely walk away from a system. Walk away from it, not put any more money into it, nothing. Let it die on the vine that has never served us. And I'm going to have the courage and the bravery to support people who have some temperance and some dignity, whoever they are, whatever letter is by their name. Who gives a rat's ass when you don't have any clean drinking water, people? Are we hearing this message? I am going to not fight for it, but I'm going to have the strength and the courage and the bravery to hold up my edge of the bridge and to be a steward for the perimeter of right action for all. That's a hell of a lot harder than fighting. And I know what we mean by fight, you guys. I know, folks, I know what we mean. Yet, if we could start to look at our words as having weight, because they do, words have weight. And we don't even think about it. I'm going to fight for what's right. How about I'm going to have the bravery and the courage to be a firewall for what's right? I'm going to be a bridge builder. And it's going to mean that some of my very lefty friends might get really upset with me because I don't want to just fall in and believe every Republican is the devil. It might mean that for some conservative folks listening out there, you might really be on the crap end of the stick if you stand up and say, it's not really true that all liberals are elite assholes that want to just run the country and make us all fall in like robots behind them in their socialist America. That's not what we want on the left. I mean, God, sociopaths are going to always try to control people. I don't care if they're on the right or the left. The left is so busy just trying to create a world hug and a big happy drum circle and, pass the weed. That's the left. And so honestly, if you think about how we've been trained in America to fight, you got to ask why. And you got to ask who's afraid to lose the control if we all can agree to disagree. Hey, you think that taxes should be used this way? I think they should be used this way. Whatever. Let the folks we elect figure that out and balance it out. And we agree that all humans have value. And we agree that we're going to come out of playing the oppression Olympics with one another. And I'm mostly saying this to white people. Okay, white people? Can we please stop playing the oppression Olympics? Well, you have no idea how much I work and I. Oh my God. I swear to God, white people's favorite word is I, me, and mine. Okay? So if we can come out of the oppression Olympics, if we can understand that there are folks living in our country that have lived lives that we can't even wrap our brains around because we've had opportunities they haven't. And stop getting defensive about that and say, well, that's stupid. Let's give all these opportunities to everybody. Come on. And it's not just a racial thing. It's a gender thing. And it's a same-sex thing. It's an everything. So substitute the word, I'm going to fight for it, for I'm going to stand. I'm going to be brave and courageous enough to be a firewall for what needs to be done. I will stand in the face of disinformation and diffuse it with compassion and temperance. You know, I am not trying, as a white woman, I am not trying to cast myself in a way that would compete in any way with someone of color who's had a very different experience than I have in the world. I'll speak from a white person's perspective who's gay and a woman. And, you know, I don't know what it's like, obviously, to be Native American or Black or Asian or Latin American, any of it in this country. I do know what it's like to have somebody tell me that I'm so second class I don't deserve to be married. I do know what it's like to be told that this deep love that I have for my wife is an abomination and shouldn't exist. I do. I lived in that world. I do know what it's like to have a church lay hands on you and try to cast the devil out of you. That happened. That was awful. So I do understand what it feels like to be on the other end of indoctrinated ignorance. Okay? And I would never pitch that against, you know, being the subject of racism or anything else. I'm simply talking from my experience. And if I, at that time, in the late 80s and 90s, when the gay rights movement was really hitting it hard, if I, at that time, would have walked up to people who were literally screaming in my face, like red-faced, covering me with their spit, coming in a gay pride parade, and there I am in my early 20s, you know, with my little Doc Martens and my cutoffs and my wife beater on and my hair ratted up higher to God and my makeup, and I'm just defiantly out there showing people that, first of all lesbians do not look like truck mechanics, and secondly, we are here. We used to, you know what we used to chant? We're here, we're queer, and we're not going shopping. Yeah. So I know what it's like to have people up in my face and screaming that I need to be held down and effed by a group of guys so I can understand what it's like to be a real woman. I do know what it's like to be pushed backwards and told that if I come in an establishment, I'll bring the devil in with me and that I need to turn the F around and leave. I have had drinks thrown on me. I have had people threaten to, I can't even tell you how many times I've had very uncomfortable men threaten to rape me to show me what it's like to be a woman. And thank God that never happened. That just wasn't in my cards, I guess. Yet, if I would have responded in that moment as the demon that they cast me as, then I don't think I would have made much headway trying to make a bridge for folks who happen to be gay, lesbian, transgendered, intergendered, all of it, queer, back in the day. Now, I'm not saying we need to lay down and be a victim at all. Yet I'm saying that I had the courage in that time frame, and I'm just using myself as an example. We've all got to kind of get in our own little worlds for this. But had I, in that time frame, grabbed a beer bottle and smashed somebody over the head and gotten into it with them, I'm not saying don't protect yourself, but had I become the demon that they thought I was, we wouldn't have gotten very far. Instead, I engaged them in conversation. I asked them why they thought that. I had to control every ounce of my fear. I had to have command over every ounce of terror and tears and everything else that was coming up in me to not become what they were pasting onto me. And to simply ask them, either walk away or ask them why they were so afraid, or can we just get to a common discussion? And for a lot of these people, it infuriated them so much that they left because I wasn't going to turn into the demon they thought I was. Now, I'm obviously using a large brushstroke example here. But had Martin Luther King decided to meet violence with violence, we would not have those beautiful illustrated brushstrokes in history. Had Gandhi, every time he was struck by a baton, got up and punched somebody back in the face because he's American. Well, he wasn't American, but you get my point. We would not have the illustration. I am not telling you to put yourself in danger. I am not telling you to put yourself in a position to be a victim. I am simply saying it takes courage and bravery to bring love, compassion, conversation, and a different way of thinking into a very established society. And especially white people, come on. You know, we are standing up all over the place. George Floyd, the death of that poor man, and Breonna Taylor, and dozens of others. It's just enough is enough. And white people, we do have a responsibility to step forward and say, no, gang, we're not doing business as usual. Because every human being, especially our Black community, who has been so suppressed, has a voice in this time frame. So I'm asking you to be brave, and I'm asking you to go against the grain, and I'm asking you to come out of every single thing that we've been programmed to be as Americans, which are joiners, haters, group thinkers. I'm asking you to put aside the ideas you'd have about what is socialism. People don't even know what the hell socialism is. I'm so tired of that getting passed around Facebook. God. By, we're going to be socialist, high taxes, socialist. You know, we in America, if we wanted to institute a 2% flat tax across to everybody who makes more than $10,000 a year and extend that to corporations so they can't write stuff off, we'd have so much money. You know, honestly, I actually whipped up a batch of that one time, or a 1% flat tax or something that everybody pays. We'd have so much money, and then you wouldn't have people trying to get out of paying, you know, and obviously you don't make people pay, you don't have money. What I'm saying is this battle cry from those who are trying to keep us separate to say there isn't enough money, there are people using you if you're a worker. A lot of that is propagated by some folks in pretty high up places because they need us fighting with one another. So we keep showing up to be a widget in the machine to make them a lot of money. There's money to go around. So if we want the world to change, we've got to get on board with growth internally, all of us. You know, we've got to get on board with being okay if a few of our friends don't talk to us for a few days because maybe we said something that's not lock, stock, and barrel what they think should be. And again, people, please understand, I'm not saying to turn your brain off. I'm not saying to turn your discernment off. I'm not saying lay down and die. I am saying that in America, if we really want to be the bright, shining light on the hill, then it means that we need to share the damn hill. And we need to light our light and then say, hey, this is how we did it over here. You know, it may or may not work for England. It may or may not work for Australia. It may or may not work for New Zealand. Y'all do you. But this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to take advantage of the freedoms set forth in this nation and really extend them and make it a better place. And I guarantee you, there will be financial institutions that'll freak the frick out if we do this, because it means that we are no longer controllable through fear. These angels have been representing that until we give away our paranoia, mistrust, and fear, we're going to kind of not do too well, gang, when it comes time to share resources with the rest of the planet. We are not going to be in a position to be so coddled by our ideology as to be able to not give away these things. Honestly. I mean, have you ever noticed, like, there's people we love to hate, right? Some people love to hate Obama. Some people love to hate Trump. Whatever. Why? Can I honestly tell you something? And this is honest to God. I don't love to hate anybody. I don't actually hate anybody. That's true. No, that's an honest to God true thing. I don't hate anybody. Why the hell would I hate somebody that I don't even know? Now, I might strongly disagree with the way that things are done. Yet if I'm not putting my damn money where my mouth is, if I am not standing up for the courage, if I am not standing up and being brave enough to say, can we just put politics aside? And can we start to build a country that is phenomenal and basically is kind of socialist right now because we're handing out money left and right for people to live on. So what? What if we were able to develop incredible technologies in this nation that we could share with the world? What if the world no longer needed to hoard resources? we're going to need to share with people. There's too many of us, and our planet is changing. And if you think COVID-19 is a pain in the butt, wait till the permafrost melts in about 10 years, and there's all kinds of airborne anthrax and all kinds of bugs and weirdness that are going to hit the air currents. You know, that we've got stuff coming, people. And until we can come together in respect and love and stop hoarding and stop fearing and believe in one another again and get enthusiastic about our infrastructure in America and reach out to some of these folks who have been in multi-generational poverty to begin to bring them tools to empower themselves in some way, regardless of what they've been through. Because human beings seek to find their purpose and they seek to apply their purpose. Can you imagine how you would feel if you never knew what your role was in the world except to hang out and watch TV? I mean, how many of you have felt lost through this pandemic? And gang, I'm not saying that there's not folks who've endured multi-generational poverty who don't have purposes. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying my observation of that demographic is a great loss of personal purpose. And it's heartbreaking overall. That's not everybody, but that's a lot of people. So what would happen if we began to see us as our greatest asset in America? Not oil, not pork, not beef, not steel, not coal, but the brilliance of our amalgamated nation. What in the damn hell would happen? We'd quit fighting. We'd start focusing on community projects. We would get excited for everybody to donate just a little bit so we could make parks and we could make community gardens. We can still go to work. We can still save our money. We can still have our IRAs. Yet we take the fear out of America. And America truly becomes free. So I leave you with this challenge on the 100th episode of Insight Radio. Challenge those ideals in you that would make one person or one group the whole problem, because that's not true. Challenge the ideals in yourself when you look out to the world that would make a country, a political system, a modality the enemy, because that's not true either. Sure, there are terrorist groups, and sure, there's dictators and authoritarians and crazy people. Yet we're going to have crazy people, gang. Yet if we stop allowing the crazy people to use the most phenomenal universal fulcrum ever, which is fear, to stir the pot in the normal ethers, then we are no longer controlled. Fear. And discernment is different than fear. I have a lot of people in the metaphysical community right now who are disgusted that I wear a mask when I go out. Well, gang, my stepmom's a doctor, and she has told me all about what COVID-19 actually does to people. She has seen it happen to people. It's not a pretend thing. And for those out there that really, really believe that it's a hoax, I'm sorry to report it is not. And even if, this is not what I've seen in any ethereal future platform, but let me just put this out there. Even if, let's just say for the sake of discussion, that the whole world has decided, the 8 people who run the world evil Illuminati cabal, deep state, whatever the hell you want to call it today, let's say they all got on board and decided to make up a story about a fake illness to control everybody and get all our money. Okay, well, if that's really true, we're kind of screwed on the top level, and not wearing a mask isn't necessarily going to fix that. So if that's true, then the only way we could combat that is to come into a place of non-fear and love and respect. So for me, that's wearing a mask. I wish I could report to you today that COVID-19 was a hoax. It is not a hoax. It's a freaking terrible virus. And those of us who think we've had it, are seeing some long-ranging effects of fatigue and all kinds of other stuff. And maybe I didn't have it. Maybe I just had a bad flu and the freaking ethers are sucking my soul out my butthole lately. I don't know. But what I tell you is that until we free ourselves from fear, we will never be free in this nation. So let's work on that. World, free yourself from fear. Make it your long-ranging goal this week to trust somebody that you normally wouldn't with something minor, okay? It doesn't have to be with your bank account numbers, but trust somebody you wouldn't normally trust. Obviously, gang, if we have people in our lives that have repeatedly shown us their pains in the ass, we don't want the trust experience with that person, okay? But trust somebody you normally wouldn't. Like if you've got internalized racist issues, if you're whomever you are, and you normally wouldn't sit next to a person of color, sit next to them. Challenge your fear, okay? If you're somebody who normally gets really uncomfortable around really wealthy people and you feel that they're going to look down on you and not interface with you, go up and say something nice to them. Just be normal. Treat them like a person and see what happens. I know we want to lead with all of our pain, gang. And we want to say, but, what about me? What about my pain? And I'm not saying your pain's not important, but by God, if we don't allow it to be a teacher, then we will never, ever evolve. And we will never be free of being controlled by our basest, most awful instincts. And it will inhibit us from going forward and bringing this world into what it always has been meant to be. And just as a sidebar, if we can get our crap together and stop throwing mud balls at each other, then our ET family out there is finally going to come down and say, well, rock on, y'all are awesome. Let's share some magnificent energy technologies and health technologies because you stopped throwing rocks at us. Thank you. So let's let the miracles start with us, gang, okay? Free yourself. Give away your fear. I thank everybody who's hung with this podcast for 100 episodes, and I cannot wait to bring you 100 more. Be courageous. Go shine. And I will see you next podcast.